guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be on Rebel. The last video that I have posted is on Rake by LJ Shen. I have uploaded the blurb, the prologue, the first chapter and the epilogue, and I'm gonna do something like that, like similar to that for Rebel by Sophie Lark, sorry. If you want the audiobook or anything, just go in the comment section, message me, DM me, or there's also my email ID, so you can contact me there. And now, if anyone does not understand what I'm speaking about, I'll put the link in the eye. Go and watch this video so that you know how to get the audiobooks of the books I am reading right now. So I'm going to first give the blurb of this book. And not waste much time, because already these videos are too long because of big chapters and all that. So yeah, The Rebel by Sophie Lark. It's the second book in the Kingmaker series. I want the one girl I can't have. Zoe Romera is trapped in a marriage contract with the most sadistic psychopath at Kingmaker. She couldn't be more off limits. Stealing her from Rocco Prince would break the most ironclad rule of the mafia world. But I have to have her. She's my soulmate. I want her or no one at all. I'll do anything to save her. Rocco will do anything to destroy her. I've got one chance to achieve the impossible. So this is what the blurb is, and then there's like a short two-line note by the author, which is: The Rebel is the second book in the epic dark mafia Kingmaker series. It's a forbidden romance full of jealousy, desire, and a hero who will do anything to save the woman he loves. Now, I'll just tell you a little bit about this book. This book has a lot of suspense, and now for all of those who don't know what Kingmaker series is, it's a series where if you've read the previous series of Sophie Lark, The Brutal Prince and all those books, Brutal Birthright, then you will know that this series is based on their children. There's a Brutal Birthright series, and like these are the children of those main characters. And two main characters in this book is Zoe and Miles. Now Zoe is someone who's new, so when you read the book you'll get to know about her. But if you've already read about Callum Griffin, then you know that Miles is his son, his oldest son. And now he is the person who has connections everywhere. He has a lot of money because his father, like they have like heritage money, or like whatever the word is, but he hasn't taken a penny from his father. He has started doing a lot of illegal businesses, selling this, selling that, and just have been making money, a lot of money. He's interested in producing things, and like when I read the first chapter, the everything, you will just get to know like you'll get into the setting of the book. And then we have Zoe. Now she is the daughter of someone who is in a lot of debt. It's just like, for them it's like marrying up the daughter so that they can get some finance for the business or something like that. And she is to be wedded in a marriage contract. She has been entered into a marriage contract with Rocco Prince, who is super cruel. There is the first chapter which I will read is from her point of view on her engagement day, so you'll get a glimpse of like what it is. And she has a sister, Kat. There are few chapters from Kat's point of view, because she plays a really important role in the book. This book is filled with murder mystery, a lot of suspense, obviously forbidden romance. The author already says, and this book will make you go through like emotions, ups and downs, and it's a good read. So without wasting a lot of time, let's just get into it. I am thinking of reading one chapter from the point of view of Zoe, one chapter from the point of view of Miles, and then maybe we can do an epilogue so that you get their happy ever after. This is like the good thing about Sophie Lark books. They all have their happy ever after. So yeah. let's start. Zoe, it's my engagement party tonight. I've never been less excited to celebrate something. My stepmother, Daniela, sends her team of specialists to ensure that I am in my peak form so Rocco and his family can be sure they're getting their money's worth. They come into my bedroom at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and spend the next 4 hours scrubbing, exfoliating, waxing, moisturizing, painting, and primping every square inch of my body. The fighting starts immediately when I demand to know why they are waxing my bikini line. It's an engagement party, I tell Daniela, not the wedding night. I don't expect anyone to check under my skirt. I glare at my stepmother, who is already part ways through her own exhausting preparation for the night ahead. She has a mud mask on her face and her hair up in rollers the size of soup cans. Far from looking ridiculous, it only makes her appear all the more imperious as the curler encircles her head like a crown, and the mask obscures the few hints of emotion Daniela ever betrays. I can't tell if Daniela actually lacks all human feelings or if she is just very good at hiding it. Daniela is only 10 years older than me. I was 9 when my mother died, 9 and a half when my father remarried. He used my mother up like an old sponge, putting her through 14 pregnancies, 10 miscarriages, 2 stillbirths, and the shameful arrival of me and my sister, Catalina, none of which produced a male heir. The last stillbirth was her death. She hemorrhaged. I'll put the word on the screen. The darkest part of me suspects that my father held back the doctor, allowing the life drain out of my mother as punishment for the fact that even that final breathless baby was a girl. My father went into a rage. There was no confront for Catalina and me, no time to mourn our mother. Instead, he ordered flower girl dresses. He was already making arrangements to marry Daniela, the youngest daughter of rival Galician clan chief. Her sister had produced 2 sons, each of their husband proof in their father's eye that Daniela would likewise be fertile and useful. Daniela fell pregnant on the honeymoon, but an anatomy scan showed the fetus was a female yet again. My father forced her to abort it. I only know this because I heard him shouting at her for hours, berating her into doing it. She was sick for several weeks after, pale and unable to walk from room to room without hunching over. I don't know how many more times she was coerced into repeating that process. Eventually, my father stopped trusting in fate and turned to science. They saw fertility specialists. Daniela went through several rounds of IVF, harvesting her eggs for the sole purpose of selecting the gender ahead of time. None of these attempts were successful. Daniela bore no babies at all. I feel bad for her, but the sympathy wouldn't be returned. Daniela hates me, she hates my sister too. Her loyalty is all to my father, no matter how he abuses her. She is his constant spy, acting as jailer to Catalina and me and helping carry out all my father's most insidious plans for us, like this engagement. It was Daniela who brokered the deal with Rocco Prince and his family. She told Rocco's mother that I was intelligent, studious, obedient, submissive, and of course beautiful. When I was only 12 years old, she sent the princess photograph of me laying by the pool in my swimsuit. The prince's first visit soon followed. Rocco was 13, was just a year older than me, but I could already tell there was something very wrong with him. He came out of the garden where I was sitting on the beach under the orange tree reading The Witch of Blackbird Pond. I stood up when I saw him approach, smoothing down the white muslin skirt of the summer dress Daniela had selected for me. Back then, I was innocent enough to still have the fantasies for a better life. I had seen movies like Sleeping Beauty and Swan Princess, where the prince and princess were betrothed by their parents, but their love was genuine. So when I heard that Rocco was coming to see me, I imagined he might be handsome and sweet, and maybe we would write letters to each other like pen pals. When he approached me in the garden, I was pleased to see that he was tall and dark-haired, slim and pale, with the look of an artist. "Hello," I said. "I am Zoe." He gave me an appraising look, not answering at first. Then he said, "Why are you reading?" I thought it was a strange question, not "what are you reading," but "why are you reading?" "Are you trying to impress me?" he said. I shook my head, confused and wrong-footed. "I always read on Saturdays," I said, "when there's no school." I didn't tell him there was nothing else to do at the house. Kat and I weren't permitted to watch TV or play video games. He picked my novel up off the bench, examined the cover, and contemplatively tossed it back down, losing my page. I was now annoyed but tired to show it. After all, he was my guest, and I was already aware of our future were meant to entwine. "You're pretty," he said, disappointedly looking me over again. "Too tall, though." If that meant he wouldn't marry me, I was already starting to think. If that meant he wouldn't want to marry me, I was already starting to think that might be a good thing. "You live in Hamburg?" I asked, trying to hide my growing dislike. "Yes," Rocco said, with a toss of his dark hair that might have been pride or disdain. I couldn't yet tell. "Have you been there before?" "No," I said. I didn't think so. I noticed little black flecks in the blue of his eyes, like someone had spattered his irises with ink. "What's that noise?" Rocco demanded. A parrot was screeching in the orange tree, swooping low over our head and then returning to its branch. It's annoyed because it's a nest full of babies up there," I said. "It wants us to leave." Rocco reached inside his jacket and took out a pellet gun. It was small, only the size of a pistol. I assumed it was a toy gun, and I thought it was childish of him to carry it around. He pointed it up the small green parrot, following its flight path in his sight. I thought he was play acting, trying to impress me. Then he squeezed the trigger. I heard a sharp puff of air. The parrot went silent, cut off mid-cry, dropping like a stone into the flower bed. I cried out and ran over to it. I picked up the parrot out of the earth, seeing the small dark hole in its breast. "Why did you do that?" I shrieked. I was thinking of its babies up in the nest. Now that the parrot wasn't squawking anymore, I could hear their faint cheeps. Rocco stood next to me, looking down at the moss-colored bird. It looked pathetic in my hand, its wing folded and dusty. "The chick will wait and wait," he said. "Then eventually they'll starve." His voice was flat and expressionless. I looked in his face. I saw no guilt or pity there, just blankness, except for a tiny upward curl of his lips. Those little black specks in his iris reminded me of mold, like there was something rancid in him, rotting him away from the inside. "You are horrid," I said, dropping the bird and wiping my palms atavistically on the sides of my dress. Then Rocco did smile, showing even white teeth. We are just getting to know one another," he said. Rocco has not improved on further acquaintances. Every time I see him, I loathe him more. Tonight I'll be expected to dance with him, to hang on his arm, to gaze at him as if we are in love. It's all a performance for the guests. He doesn't love me any more than I do him. The only thing he likes about me is how much I despise him. He enjoys that very much. That's the man for whom Daniela demands that I wax my pussy. I stare at her with deep distrust, wondering what she knows that I don't. Why does she think it's important that I be perfectly smooth from the chin down? What does she expect to happen? "I am not doing it," I tell her. He's not touching me tonight. Daniela tilts her head to the side, eyes narrowed. She's quite beautiful, I would never deny that. She has the austere look of a saint in a painting. Like a saint, she worships a cruel and vengeful god, my father. You better learn to please him, she says quietly. It will be so much harder on you if you fight. The things a man can do to his wife when she's trapped with him, all alone in a big house like this, with only his soldiers around. She blinks slowly in a way that has always reminded me of a reptile. You should learn how to flatter him, how to assist him, how to serve him with your body. I would rather die, I tell her flatly. She laughs softly. Oh, you'll wish you were dead, she says. She nods to her team of aestheticians. With something approaching force, they push me down on the chase, pry my legs apart, spread hot wax over the entirety of my pussy, all over up to my anus. Then they rip the wax off in strips until I'm bald as an egg absolutely everywhere. Daniela watches the whole thing, then examines the final result. She checks it for she checks for any sign of deformity that might derail her plans. Then she nods her approval. When I was presented to your father, I was stripped naked in front of a dozen of soldiers. They evaluated me like a horse at an auction. She says, be grateful, it's only Rocco you have to impress. She leaves me with the aesthetician so she can complete her own beautifying. Daniela has already selected the jewelry and the clothes I'll be wearing. The aestheticians carry out her orders, zipping me into a suffocating gown that hoists up my breasts and cinches my waist to a fraction of its usual size. The gown is long, gold and sparkling with the sort of sleeves that are not sleeves at all, but only fabric draped below the shoulders. My hair is piled up, my head with golden band as a tiara. It's all undeniably beautiful, in impeccable taste. I'm a glittering golden gift. A black shroud would be more fitting. I feel like I'm going to my own funeral. I'm like those maidens the Incans used to sacrifice to the gods, the virgins of the sun. All year they were fed delicious maize and llama meat. They were bathed and beautified with feathered headdresses and exotic shell necklaces, and then they were carried to the mountaintop tombs to be sealed inside of an offering to the god that craved their death. Catalina comes into my room, likewise dressed for the night ahead. Cat perfectly suits her name. She's small and lithe, and she moves as silently as little black cat. She has a pretty heart-shaped face, large dark eyes, and a dusting of freckles across her nose. She is dressed in a pale lavender gown. Even though we are only a year apart, she looks much younger. She's always been timid. I can see how nervous she is for the party, for everyone staring at us. Lucky for her, most of the attention will be pointed in my direction. And she doesn't have to worry about being roped into some hateful marriage contract, at least not yet. That was the part of my agreement with my father. Kat doesn't have to get married until she graduates college, and neither do I. My father and stepmother are allowing me to attend Kingmaker for all 4 years, as long as I agree to marry Rocco directly after graduation. It was the last desperate ploy on my part to delay the inevitable. They only agreed because Rocco is also at Kingmaker, as are plenty of his cousins and mine always around to spy on me to make sure I'm not drinking or dating or breaching any of the rules of the betrothal. Kingmaker is no normal school. It's a private college for the children of mafia families from around the globe, located on Visayne Dvoka, a tiny island in the Adriatic Sea. You couldn't imagine a more lonely and isolated place. And yet, I almost enjoyed my freshman year. It was my first time living away from my father. The relief I felt alone in my tiny dorm room was nothing I had experienced. When I attended class, I was free to study and learn, and even to make friends without constant judgment, constant criticism. Kingsmaker is a castle fortress, a city unto itself, so vast and sprawled, like I could easily avoid Rocco most of the time. Since he's a year older than me, we don't share classes together. The relief I felt was painful because I knew it couldn't last. Tasting freedom might only hurt me more in the end. I felt guilty leaving Kat here alone. I know it was a hard year for her. I can see it as she sits down on the edge of the bed. She has a flinching reaction to noise that has worsened since I was gone. But she should experience the same freedom soon enough. She's been accepted to Pintamonas and will be leaving in the fall the same as me. Kat is a talented artist. She loves drawing, painting, and graphic design. She'll flourish at school. The further away from our world she goes, the better off she'll be. Maybe she'll escape it entirely some way, somehow. You look stunning, Kat says to me, eyes wide-eyed and impressed. Kat is so innocent. I've always tried to protect her from the uglier things in our life, like how much I loathe Rocco. She knows I'm not thrilled about being pushed into a marriage, but I've never told her how much he terrifies me. It would devastate her. There's nothing she can do to help me. The princess will be so impressed by you, Kat says sincerely. You look lovely too, I tell her. I made this for you, Kat says. Gently, she lays a bracelet in my open palm. It's delicate and intricate. A net of tiny golden beads strung on woven wires. I can't imagine the hour of painstaking work to braid those fragile strands. It makes me want to cry. Knowing you're loved, truly loved, by at least one person makes all the difference in the world. I put my arm around my sister and hug her hard, closing my burning eyes. Thank you, Kat, I murmur. I'll help you put it on, she says. She circles it around my waist, closing the tiny clasp. It fits perfectly. Daniela will be furious if she sees that I have augmented her meticulously curated look, but I don't give a fuck. I can't express to Kat how much it means to me to wear something I actually like, one good omen in this awful night. We better get down, I say to Kat. Even though Kat and I are early, our father and stepmother are already waiting in the airy foyer. It shows how anxious they are about to close the deal with the princess family. Daniela is wearing a sleek gown of deep bronze, her hair in an elegant bun. My father has on a black velvet jacket with a matching bronze pocket square. He's a man of substantial height and breadth. Though Daniela is still always careful to select heels that always put her at least an inch or two below him, he has a mane of grizzled grey hair that makes him look like an elderly lion and a broad aristocratic nose. His mouth is the only weak feature about him. His lips thin and fleshless, always pulling down at the curves. They turn to examine Kat and me as we come down the stairs. I slip my left wrist into the folds of my skirt so Daniela won't notice the bracelet. Daniela frowns, displeased with something in our appearance. Maybe it's Kat's flyaway curls that can never be tamed, despite the best efforts of the professionals. Maybe she doesn't think my waist looks small enough. It's always something or usual, nothing we could actually fix. My father nods his approval, so Daniela keeps silent. Be sure to curtsy to Rocco when you see him, my father says. I crush down the rebellious part of me that cringes at that instruction. I hate his formal parade of false affection. I hate that I am expected to bow and simper all night long in front of all these hateful strangers. I follow my father out of the house to the waiting limo. We live in a traditional style villa in Sitges on the south coast of Barcelona. My father bought this place because of the unusually large plot of land and clear view to the ocean. The ground includes spa and sauna, a Turkish bath, several ponds stocked with exotic fishes, a large outdoor dining area, and an orchard. Surrounded on all sides, of course, by hedges and stone walls. He likes to think of himself as a gentleman, though we are descended from fishmongers. The Galician clan were all fishermen to begin with. Then the Bay of Biscay ran barren, and they turned to tobacco smuggling instead. Smuggling was far more lucrative than fishing had ever been. The fleets multiplied, and the fishermen grew rich with empty nets and cargo holds stuffed with tobacco, hashish, and cocaine. The Galician made contacts with Colombia and Morocco. Spain became the entry point for the vast majority of high quality cocaine smuggled into Europe. They built distribution routes to Portugal, France, and Britain, made alliances with the Albanese, the Turkish mafia to bring in heroin too. They bought politicians and won the love of people by sponsoring festivals, schools, and football teams. Juven turned Cambados became the highest paid football player in the nation despite being located in a tiny town, all thanks to narco money. But what had been a local operation between the tight knit Galician clan became an international enterprise. The clan began to feud. Long separated resentment flared up all again, this time with exponential force behind them. Threats turned into kidnapping, kidnapping into torture and murder, a cycle of bloody reprisal split the clan apart. This is where my father finds himself now, caught between the powerful Alonso clan, who have allied themselves with the Brits, and the Torres family, who owns the People's Party and the Galician Prior. My father needs a partner, or he'll be swallowed up by one of the other clans, or worse, crushed under their boots. He's only clinging to his empire by his fingernails. That's where the Prince family comes in. The Prince own the most powerful distribution network in Germany. With our product and their network, we'll all become wealthy beyond measure. For the small price of my marriage to Rocco Prince. I'm sure his parents know they are raising a psychopath. He bounced around boarding school across Europe to hush up the rumors of his cruelty, his depravity, his senseless violence. I doubt there's a mafia family in Germany who would give him one of their daughters. But a desperate Spaniard? Yes, my father will gladly hand me over, as long as he gets the protection he needs. As we seat ourselves in the back seat of the limo, my father pops a bottle of chilled champagne. He fills 4 flutes, his hand steady, even with the unpredictable motion of the moving car as we head into the city. To securing our future, he says, raising his glass. Daniela watches as I drink down mine. They used to ply the Incan virgins with alcohol and coca to keep them docile, to help them accept their gruesome fate. Have another glass, why don't you? Daniela says to me, for your nerves. We drive down to Portwell to the Royal Spinnyard. The old medieval dockyard have been renovated into the grand venue for wedding and galas. The vast space that once held the bones of Barquentines now host the elite of Spanish society in their tuxedos and gowns, their genteel laughter echoing high up in the rafter. It's almost midnight. In Barcelona, we don't even eat dinner until 10 o'clock at night. This party won't reach its peak until the early hours of the morning. I'm already exhausted just thinking about it. My father takes my arm in a steel grip and steers me relentlessly towards the center of the room where I can see Dieta, Gisela, and Rocco Prince holding court amongst their many admirers. The princes look just as regal as their name. Dieta could be the cashier with his immaculately trimmed black moustache and his military-style tuxedo. Gisela is fair-haired and pale, significantly younger than her husband. Rocco stands between them. Black hair combed straight back from his brow, face lean and pale and cleanly shaven. Cheeks so hollow that a dark shadow runs from his eyes down to his jaw. My father shoves me forward, so I am forced to sink into a low courtesy in front of Rocco. I can feel his eyes looking down in front of this ridiculous gown. He makes me hold my position a moment too long before putting his cool slim fingers under my chin and tilting my face up. "Hello, my love," he says in his soft, sensual voice. His fingers feel as smooth and cold as a snake's tail. I want to cringe away from his touch. Instead, he lifts me to my feet, allowing his fingertips to trail over my collarbone to the top of my breast as he releases them. I give a small bow to his parents. Dieter Prince takes my hand and lifts it to his lips in a brief dry kiss. I much prefer his indifference to his son's deliberate torment. Gisela Prince briefly meets my eyes, then looks away. I've barely spoken to her, but if she knows anything about her son, she must feel some measure of guilt over the fate in store for me. I would assume there's a reason the princess never had any other children. They might have worried that Rocco would strangle a baby in its sleep. "Shall we dance?" Rocco says. He doesn't wait for my response. He takes my hand and pulls me onto the dance floor, which is already filled with whirling couples. The light, lilting Spanish guitar contrasts the tense repulsion I feel whenever Rocco touches me. The musicians are playing a gentle arolo, but as soon as Rocco has me on the floor, he snaps his fingers, ordering them to switch to tango instead. Astorius by Mark Leswizin. "I don't know how to tango," I tell him, trying to pull away. He yanks me against his body, hand cradling the back of my neck, fingers digging into the vulnerable flesh at the side of my throat. "Don't lie to me," he hisses in my ear. The dual bandoneons play their introductory riff, their fingers flying over the strings. Rocco shoves his thigh between mine, dipping me back across his other leg until it feels like my spine upright again, our bodies pressed together from breast to hip. His face only inches from mine. He forces me to look in his eyes. He forces me to see how much he enjoys this. He strides forward, shoving me backward in 4 long steps. Rocco is slim, but horribly strong. There's nothing on his frame but muscles and sinew. Struggling against him is pointless, especially when every eye in the room is turned towards us and I can't cause a scene. Raising his arm over my head, he spins me like a top, then bends me back again, exposing my breasts to the crowd even more than they already were. This is a real purpose of dancing together, so Rocco can display his control over me. There's no passion in his tango, no sensuality. His movements are rapid and technically precise, but without any feeling. Latin dancing is all about desire. The music is raw, insistent, all heat. There's no warmth in Rocco. I don't think he ever feels lust. He's flaunting my body because he knows it embarrasses me. All his pleasure comes from my discomfort. My desire to defy him just opposed with my complete inability to do so. I feel like a marionette on string. I actually like dancing. A few times I've been able to enjoy it without anybody watching. Rocco is poisoning this, as he poisons everything. My face is flaming, acid in my throat. This song seems interminable. The crowd around us is a blur of colors and dark, staring eyes. Finally, the music stops and the guests applaud politely. The party is such a fucking charade. No one here cares about Rocco or me or our upcoming wedding. Everyone present is fully focused on the deal they plan to make tonight. The connection and the agreements. Rocco hasn't released me. "That's enough dancing," I tell him. "I need a drink." "Of course, my love," Rocco says. He delights in pretending to be doting fiancé, using these terms of endearment, pretending that he has any interest in my heart, when really everything he does is in pursuit of his own amusement. That's why he forces me to take his arm as we head towards the bar. He wants me close and he wants me touching him all the time. Just water, please, I say to the bartender. I already had enough drink in the limo. I don't want to be inhibited around Rocco. Two scotch. Rocco cuts me across. The bartender obeys him, not me. He pours the expensive liquor over a single spear of ice and then passes up the drink. Bottoms up. Rocco says, his blue eyes boring into mine. I swallow the drink. The sooner I get through these niceties, dancing with him, drinking with him, speaking to him, the sooner we can part ways again. Let's take a walk along the marina, Rocco says. I don't think we should leave the party, I protest. I don't want to be alone with him. Nonsense, Rocco says quietly. It's expected that a happy couple will want to slip away. I set my glass down on the bar, the ice spear spinning like a lonely planet. All right, I say. I won't be able to go far though in these heels. You can lean on me. Rocco replies with a thin smile. There would be a plenty of people on the marina at this time of night. The docks are lined with restaurants, nightclubs, and shops. Still, I know he isn't taking me out there for no reason. He always has a reason. I glance around for Kat as we are leaving, hoping to make an eye contact with her so she'll know where I've gone. She's dancing with one of my father's associate, a lecherous old fuck with a spotty bald head who's holding her too close to him and whispering God knows what in her ear. Kat's smile looks pasted on her face. She doesn't see me. Rocco notices where I'm looking and he smiles in a way that I don't like one bit. He tucks my hand into the crook of his elbow once more and begins to parade me down the marina. You're very close to your sister, aren't you? He says. No more than normal, I say. The lie is instinctive and automatic. Rocco will use any leverage he can find to fuck with me. I don't want him to know that the only thing in the world that matters to me is Kat. But he already knows. He doesn't ask a question without already knowing the answer. And he can always tell when I'm lying. Did she make that bracelet for you? He asked, touching it with one slim forefinger. I snatch back my wrist, irrationally outraged. I don't want him tainting the bracelet. No, I lie again. It's my only protection against him, to refuse to answer him truthfully, even in the smallest details. I try to build a wall around myself, shutting him off from anything genuine. It's the only way to keep myself safe. I hate lying. I am an honest person. Deceit never tastes right in my mouth, no matter the reason for it. The way I'm forced to sneak and conceal by Rocco and by my father and stepmother sickens my soul. Rocco likes making me lie. This is what he wants, to break me down, to twist me, to change me. We are passing a seafood restaurant. The open patio full of diners enjoying their wine and poached fish. Swifter than I can blink, Rocco grabs my arm and jerks me into the narrow alleyway between two restaurants. He shoves me up against the wall, a reek of empty mussel shell and fishbone filling my nostril. He seizes my jaw in his hand, pinching hard on both cheeks. The pressure of my flesh against my molars is instantly painful. He forces me to open my mouth. You weren't very friendly to me last year at school. He hisses, his nose inches away from mine. I almost felt like you were avoiding me, Zoe. My bare back is shoved up against the filthy alley wall. My jaw is aching and I feel absurdly vulnerable with my lips forced apart. I expect him to try to kiss me. Instead, he spits in my mouth. His cold saliva hits my tongue. I lash out instinctively, wrenching my face free and hitting him away from me while I wrench and gag. The unwanted scotch comes heaving up and I vomit on the cement, splashing my bare toes with their golden sandals. My failing arm knocks Rocco across the face. He scowls at me, either from the blow or from the extreme reaction to his spit on my tongue. At least he doesn't want to touch me anymore now that I've puked. I expect your attitude to improve coming September, Rocco says coldly. If not, there will be consequences. He strides away from me, leaving me alone in the alley. My legs are shaking so hard that I can barely make it up the party. As soon as I enter the room, Daniela appears at my side hissing, "Fix your makeup, you look like a whore." I stumble off towards the bathroom. Sure enough, my eyes are watering from vomiting and my mascara is smeared as if I were giving an enthusiastic blowjob in that alley. Daniela has no problem with that. It's what she expected me to be doing. It's the lack of care in my appearance that she can't abide. Rocco's spit in my mouth was almost as bad as the alternative. I wash my mouth at the sink, rinsing over and over until I've recovered the ability to swallow without heaving. I don't like this new demand from Rocco, but I don't see how he can enforce it. I've agreed to marry him after graduation. I've never said we will be best friends at school. He leaves me alone the rest of the night, and I think that's all he has got in store for me. I think I got off relatively easy. The next morning, my father and stepmother breakfast with Dieter and Gisela Prince to see them off before they head back to Hamburg, and no doubt to discuss details of their new collaboration. I am not invited. My spirit begins to rise, knowing that I won't see Rocco again until I board the ship to Kingsmaker. When we meet again, I'll have friends around me. Anna Wilk, Shay Wagner, for instance, who shared the same dorm with me freshman year. They are formidable women, both proper heir who will actually inherit their family business instead of being given the title in name only, and then immediately married off. Anna will run the Polish mafia in Chicago. She'll have a dozen bravazzo under her command. Shay is the heir of the Berlin chapter of the Night Wolves, a Russian motorcycle gang. With those two girls beside me, I'm not afraid to face even Rocco and his friends. That is until my father calls Kat and me down to his study. I hate entering my father's office. This is a place I have never been invited to unless I am in trouble. Cold sweat breaks out on my skin just stopping foot over at the threshold. Kat is even more frightened. Her teeth are rigidly clenched to keep them from clattering. We enter his study, which is dark and oppressive, the walls lined with floor-to-ceiling shelves in ebony wood, most of the space filled with fossil instead of books. My father is immensely proud of it, which includes several dragonflies preserved in limestone, the pelvis of the woolly rhinoceros, and a full archaeologistry. I'm not looking for any of that because I see Rocco Prince standing next to my father. Rocco is dressed in a black suit and tie with a ruby pin in his lapel that glimmers like a droplet of blood, as if it fell from the corner of his mouth. "Sit," my father says, indicating the chair in front of his vast gleaming desk. Kat and I sit down while my father remains seated in his own grand chair and Rocco stands next to him like a king and his executioner. "Your fiancé is worried about you," my father says, glaring at me from under his grizzled eyebrows. "He says you were in low spirit last night." I chance a swift glance around at Rocco, trying to guess his purpose. He's punishing me for slapping him last night, but what does he want exactly? I don't know how to reply. Arguing will only get me in more trouble. "I am sorry," I say. "Rocco says you were unhappy all last year at Kingsmaker. He said you seemed lonely." My eyes dart back and forth between my father's scowl and Rocco's smooth, impassive face. What is this game? Is he trying to get me to promise to fawn over him at school? Is he trying to get me to drop out? No, Rocco still has 2 more years at Kingmaker. He wants me there where he can keep an eye on me, I'm sure of it. School was new and different at first, I say, cautiously, but I think I've adjusted eventually. Your fiancé disagrees. I clench my hand hard in my lap, my mind racing. I don't know Rocco's angle, so I have no idea how to try to counteract it. My father's clock ticks away on the wall, maddening loud. My father clears his throat, looking between my sister and me. After some discussion, I've thought of the way to make you more comfortable in your sophomore year. I try to swallow, but my mouth is too dry. What? I say. Cat will be attending Kingsmaker with you. Cat gives a terrified squeak in the seat next to me. Before I can stop myself, I cry, "What? You can't!" My father's face darkens and his head lowers like a bullet about to charge. "Excuse me?" he says. I see a flicker of smile on Rocco's lips. I'm playing right into his hands. By challenging my father, I am only entrenching his decision. I try to backtrack. I only meant, what about Pintamonas? Cat's already been accepted. She'll go where I tell her to go. My father growls. I'm perfectly happy at Kingsmaker. I've adjusted already. Cat doesn't need to. Art school is pointless. My father interrupts. Rocco has been telling me all he's been learning at Kingsmaker, the variety of skills taught amongst the various divisions. Cat is timid, cowardly even. It would do her good to learn the real work of the Mafioso. If only she can appreciate what her husband does when the time comes. Cat gives me a desperate, pleading look, begging me to think of some way to get her out of this. I've told her how challenging Kingmaker is, how brutal it can be. For me, it's a welcome distraction, but for Cat, it'll be hell on earth. Please, father, I say. Cat is delicate. She could get injured. It's time for her to toughen up. My father says ruthlessly. I've made my decision. Rocco made the decision, more like. Then he manipulated my father into thinking it was his idea. I don't want to look at Rocco, but I can't help myself. I turn my full furious stare on him. He smiles back at me, showing his sharp white teeth. Don't worry, my love, he says. I'll take care of your sister. And that's how, the first chapter comes to an end. It's so long. This video is already going to be some 15 minutes. So I'm going to stop this video here and I'm going to make a next video on the second chapter of the book, which is going to be from Miles' point of view, which is actually the second chapter is actually, Miles' point of view before he goes to, before he meets Zoe. So I'm going to put that in, or maybe the next chapter. I'm going to put one Miles chapter in and then I'm going to read the epilogue. So you guys get a gist of what the story is and all that. So thank you for watching this video. Like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.